time the pain comes, don't run away. Dance and celebrate as it's an opportunity for you to grow in your life. That's a perspective shift that you have to bring in yourself. It's not an obstacle, it's an opportunity.
Welcome to Take a Pause with me, Varun Duggirala. One of the first questions I always, that's where I get stuck. I'm like, what do I start with? What do I ask my guest about? Prithvi, I want to actually ask you about what do you feel we don't understand about ourselves, or rather we're not taught from the time when we are children to when we become older, which actually leads to all the need for us to need some form of therapy, need some form to understand ourselves when you're older. What if we don't know enough of when we are younger?
I think we are never taught how to cope with a situation, which is an adverse situation. We are always told to react in the situation, either by aggressively attacking it or by reacting to keep it under the carpet. So I think the cope-up mechanism is something that is not taught. What's the healthy cope-up? How do you deal with something that didn't go well for you?
Yeah.
I think that is something big time missing in the society, where most of the responsibility comes on to parents to deal with or teach their children to do it that way, right? Not, the schools don't take the responsibility of it. There's nothing in the education system about it. Yeah, I understand that, there is something that they will probably help you with. But even at home, if you see, Varun, I don't think the parents are equipped because their parents were not equipped. Yeah. So I don't think there is a manual to parenting and life itself. So I think we are all trying to figure out, we are all 8 billion plus people in this world. And I think not a single person will have same way of dealing with the situation. So I think that's the most important thing that is missing.
Yeah. And also what comes with not knowing is that there's an added pressure on the parent to make sure that we will, having kids makes you think about your own childhood. And then you're seeing kids going through the same cycle that you went through. And you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do to make sure they're not going through what I'm going through? But you're actually also realizing you're repeating the same things that happened to you as well. What got you into this space of really working with people to deal with the relationships in their lives and everything that they're kind of going through? What got you into this space?
So my journey, Varun, started as an Ayurvedic doctor in 1997. So that's like 26 years back almost. And back then people would look at Ayurveda. Now also they do similar way probably. But back then it was too much that people would only look at Ayurveda as a last resort. Ki kuch nahi ho raha hai to let's go here and see if this can come to some help, And people, I was a young doctor and people would come and like, कुछ तो कर लो, कुछ तो बता दो. So I would be like, कि last minute आओगे तो कैसे मतलब? And then they would say कि कुछ फायदा नहीं हुआ. But in that journey, what I got is, I think it was a blessing that I get to witness a lot of critical illness cases and identifying what they really need. So dealing with 4th stage cancer probably, chronic insomnia, chronic hormonal disturbances, lifestyle disorders like diabetes, cardiovascular disorders, autoimmune disorders, MS, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, allergies, different sorts of allergies. So one thing led to another. I started getting really good at dealing with these chronic illnesses somehow. But what I also observed is after a few days or months or years, people would come back with the similar symptoms. So they were not fully cured. Even though they could reverse it, it came back. And that got me thinking that, maybe what I'm doing right now is something is missing. There's a different root cause that is causing this problem. So back then there was no internet. Yeah. So I couldn't check out what's happening, what other research is happening. So we had to totally rely on books and we had to totally rely on our experiences. So I was trying to figure out what's happening in these people when they were, and most of them were born healthy.
Yeah.
Very rarely there was a hereditary or genetic history. People were sharing that, okay, in my family someone had cancer, or in my family someone had, arthritis or something like that. So I was wondering if they're born healthy, what makes them unhealthy? So body is creating something inside, right? And obviously the toxic chemicals. So where are these toxic chemicals coming from? So then I started thinking about, okay, the thought is generating the toxic chemicals. The toxic chemicals are then generating the unhealthy diseases in their body, whatever that is. Maybe it started with a symptom which they ignored by taking a pill. And then it continued aggravating more and more and more. And it led to this big problem now. And after that also they went to the places where the symptoms were suppressed because there was no true cure to it, right? I don't think 25 years back people were looking at mental health and body has any connection.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we always looked at body and mind separate. And I think that happened sometime in 16th century.
Yeah.
If we go back to realize that, okay, René Descartes was the first scientist who separated body and mind. He said whatever is tangible comes under physics and whatever is intangible comes under religion, right? So I think that's separated, and then Newton came and proved that his theories, and then we are all studying Newtonian physics, right? So I think we never connected the body and mind together, and that's what medical science, all medical sciences went into that. So I think that's where somewhere the key, I started finding that I probably need to understand what is happening in their life or what has happened in their life in the past. So most of the people had traumatic experiences. They had lost somebody, some compromise or adjustment they had to do that had to take a detour in their life. And they were still brooding over those issues. And not just one event. Some of them had constant stress in terms of financial issues, dysfunctional families. They've seen violence and physical and sexual abuse, unsafe environments that they were growing in. So it's kind of like I started realizing that this is where something I need to figure out. And back then I was not trained into any other modality. Like I was just an Ayurvedic doctor.
Yeah.
I can't say just an Ayurvedic doctor because this Ayurveda has a lot, but still I feel that there was a lot of missing. So then I started educating myself in various modalities to understand how do I help these people better. And when I started using those modalities, people started getting the results. They started actually reversing the cases. And the interesting thing, Varun, happened is when they were reversing their cases, they started coming back and saying, not just my health improved, but I started seeing my relationship has become better. I'm able to communicate what I'm feeling in an appropriate way without offending anybody or without taking the burden. I'm able to set the boundaries. I'm able to work harder, not procrastinate anymore. So my career is going well. Money started flowing. Opportunities are coming to me. And that's where somewhere I think the bulb on moment happened, because I was also figuring it out my life that time. Because even though you are good as a doctor, my personal life was not really good because I had my own, whatever was going on in my mind.
Yeah.
And that's where I started realizing that why am I waiting for people to fall sick and reach a critical stage to come to me?
Yeah.
Why can't I take what I have understood to everybody so that they never reach a stage where they will have to find a doctor like me?
Yeah.
And that's where the whole journey started, that where I started weaving my mind and emotional work with the body. And that's where the whole journey about, I could say, good 15 years back.
What you just said is such an interesting point, right? Medicine, and I think we looked at any form of illness as, okay, this is, we treat it after you have it.
Yeah.
But I feel only in recent times are we talking about this as a preventive exercise and not just a treatment-based exercise. And especially with the mind, it's... I remember as a kid also someone said they want to be a psychologist, psychiatrist. They would say, but who will come to you? Only crazy people will come to you, right? People would always say that. And they've come a long way from there to really having mental health as a conversation, not as something that is, oh my God, this person's going to a psychiatrist. But I feel we've just kind of touched the surface of understanding what goes on in our minds in terms of the mechanics of it, how that affects our body, how that affects how we feel, how that affects every single aspect of our lives. Do you feel it also has flipped our understanding of how does what happens in our mind affect every aspect of who we are? Do you feel it goes beyond even where we're at right now?
Absolutely. I personally feel, Varun, we have a long way to go. We have come a long way, I feel, from last 25 years where we were. But I think we have a long way to go. Because what I see is a typical norm. People think that mental health, you're dealing with you're going to a therapist or something, is probably a luxury. I don't think people still realize that it's not a luxury. It's mandatory. It's like, you have your bathroom flooding. Do you fix it yourself or you call a plumber?
Exactly.
You have a short circuit at home. Do you fix it yourself or you call an electrician? Why do you think it's different from that? You have an overloaded flooding mind. You have to have a proper expert to fix it for you. And I don't think it's an expense. People still look at it as an expense. I think it's an investment. See, we buy cars, we buy expensive gadgets, we have great laptops with us and great jewelry and all that. Do we leave it unattended? Or do we send it to the local garage, or we send it to the right servicing center? And we have annual maintenance contract for our ACs, for our pest control. What about this? I mean, this is the biggest hardware that you have, and software. So when are you going to think about it? It is necessary. It will otherwise catch junk. And then how are you going to use that optimum?
Yeah.
And it is catching junk, and that's the reason you're having all those issues, health issues bolo, relationship issues bolo. It's all because you've not understood yourself well, what's going on in there well. And beyond that, I think you're not understanding other people too. I think it is a mandatory subject that you have to learn since childhood, how to understand yourself better and then how to understand the other person better. I think this is a foundation, and it's not a luxury.
And some of that foundation for many people, like you said, is the trauma they went through when they were younger, right? And trauma it can become a very generalized term that we use. We're saying, okay, this person has trauma, but there's so many different levels of what someone's gone through and how it affects them. What is the understanding of what trauma does to someone's mind and how they behave, especially if it happens to them when they're younger, and how does that manifest as they get older? If someone has to kind of understand almost the fundamentals of it, right? Saying, is what I've gone through even trauma, or is what I'm seeing someone going to go through, is it that, or is it, and where in the spectrum does it lie? How does someone begin to understand that?
So if there is any memory, which is especially the negative memory, is in your mind alive for more than 2 years, is a traumatic memory. That's the first thing that you have to understand. If you still remember that there is something happened in your past. Like I had an incident when I was 8-year-old where, I had prepared my sister had made me prepare the entire speech, and I really learned it, didn't know what it means. And I'm just 8-year-old, and I went next day for the competition, and there were hundreds of people right in front of me. The moment I saw them, I froze. And I just started crying, right? Now, how it turned as a trauma, because at that age, children are brutal. Oh, banana peel se bhi hum fisalte to we laugh, right?
100%.
So imagine the shame, the embarrassment, or the bullying that may have happened that time, because that memory was very, very vivid in my space, and I think that memory altered my behavior to a large extent. I would still not, I was very good at talking one-to-one, but I would never take an opportunity to talk to many people. And it restricted me in terms of my business. It restricted me in terms of me reaching out to many people. So we have to understand, is there a memory beyond 2 years which is still alive in your space when you're sitting on your own? Do you go to that rabbit hole? And what goes on there? And I think every negative such imprint which is there, which then has a cycle of creating negative thoughts. And those negative thoughts are then generating the negative feelings. And whenever there is a negative feeling in your space, whether it's anxiety, whether it's fears, whether it's procrastination, whether it's perfectionism, whether it's self-doubt and confusion and things that go on constantly in your space, are coming from the toxic chemicals. What are these toxic chemicals? The toxic chemicals are basically the stress hormones. Now, the stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol are probably good for some time. When there's a tiger in front of you, it helps you to run away or fight back, right? So that's good. But imagine in your mind that tiger is always there. Now your brain is releasing these toxic chemicals all the time. And these toxic chemicals are pretty addictive in nature. So what happens now is very interesting. Like if you have seen a person who smokes, they smoke a cigarette, the nicotine is released in the blood, they feel calm, they start doing the work. After some time, the nicotine is released from the blood through the sweat or other forms, and the moment that dips, what happens in the body? The restlessness starts, the distraction starts, and the body cells now communicate to the mind, the brain, that come on, it's time to let that another cigarette, right? It's a chain reaction. And these toxic chemicals are exactly having the chain reaction like that. So you may be in a toxic relationship, you may be in a toxic environment at your work. You get out of the toxic relationship, or probably you, change your job because your boss is not good, or something happening in your life, or you get over the health issue. You move on in your life, and it all comes back from different set of people, and you wonder, what is this pattern? Why am I getting this pattern? It's exactly like that cigarette. So now that your problem is resolved, your adrenaline and cortisol has reduced in the body. Now there are trillions of cells of your body, and they're internally screaming, hey, it's time for the next one. And you go land up in the same situation again. It's pretty much that you are attracting things in your life. Nobody's doing anything to you.
There's so many parts of what you said I want to ask questions on. But as you were talking about yourself, when you were younger, it reminded me of one of the things which I've realized through therapy has been a big factor in my life, right? I must have been in like second standard, and we had this and fancy dress competition, as they would call it, costume competition. I was dressed up as, I think I was a farmer. I was going to go on stage, I was going to be funny. Until then, I was that kid who would, when anybody came home, I'd go perform for them, go talk to them, always want to be on stage, all that stuff. The year before, I'd even done like a play where I'd done like 2 characters, where I switched costumes in between. That day, I got on the stage, went in front of the mic, and I froze, cried, right? I'm standing in front of crying, my parents are there, all the families, and we were in a smaller town, so obviously most people who were there, people we knew. And, I'm crying on stage, and I say, Mama, I don't want to. When I ran off stage, from that day, and I must have been if I'm second standard, it must be like 7, 8. Yeah. The next time I've pushed myself to get on stage, I must have been in my late 20s, early 30s. And even then, even now, whenever I go on stage, even I do a podcast, right? There's this weird stiffening at the back of my neck that happens. And I went to a physio some time back, and the physio actually, every time you get stressed, your neck stiffens. So I have to go for like acupuncture and all that stuff. And what I learned in therapy is that I still haven't fully dealt with that moment on stage. And it might seem like a small piece for most people to understand, but it's traumatic in the sense that it pushes you away from that one action. Absolutely. Your mind saying, remember what happened then? Run away from that. Yeah. So while you're talking about this, I still remember that, and it's something that's so imprinted in my head. And very recently, my daughter was on stage. First time she was in a play, she was on stage, she was playing the lead character in a school play. She picks up a mic, and the mic isn't working. And I'm sitting in front, and I have frozen. I'm like, I don't want this to happen to her. But she switches on the mic, talks normally, and goes ahead. And I just saw that, just that moment, that switch that she had versus what happened to me, at least in my mind, like it's taken away from that, what might seem like a small incident, but like it's been a lifelong of residue. And people have such smaller things that they have residues of, right? But you might not even realize that this was traumatic for you. So if I want to figure out, once I can, it stayed for me for this long, how do we spot triggers? Because for me, the trigger became every time I went on stage. So I had to realize after many sessions of therapy that was my biggest trigger in life. But how do I put down what my triggers are? Should we work behind from triggers, or is it better to kind of go back to things which happened in our childhood?
I feel you have to always go back to, people shy away from it because I get a lot of questions like this that, but I've forgotten about it. Why should I go back to it? No, you have not forgotten. You're not consciously remembering it. It's right there, and it's alive. And every time you go through, and it's not one memory. It's just one memory you're talking about, right? But there must be multiple such events that it may have had every time probably you were in a crowd. Not necessarily you have to be on a stage. But every time there is probably more than 10, 15, 20 people in front of you, you're going to go back to that event. Because, see, it's very important for our brain to find out what evidences do I have from the past about this situation. Let me give an example. Like, suppose this is a cup of water. It's hot. Like, how do I know hot? Because the vapors are coming out, right? Yeah. Now, As a child, either you've seen, or you're told, or probably something has happened to you, you've experienced that you touch something hot and you burnt, right? So every time there's a, like, from far, if I see there's a vapor coming out, it could be ice vapor.
Yeah.
For all you know, or it could be just nitrogen.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pick it up from like this only. I'm never going to touch it like this because I have a memory. Why I have that is because your brain, a part of your brain is always looking out to keep you safe and comfortable. And such traumatic memories are always like virus files. Every time you are downloading a new software,
It's still there.
it's there.
Yeah.
It's going to corrupt the entire system. And it's like, I always give this example of a volcano. So think about it, Varun, if there's a volcano, okay? And you see that there's an outlet of a volcano, it's going to erupt. You put a lot of tar, a lot of cement, and you just kind of close that outlet. Now what's going to happen to the volcano? Did it die off, or did it kind of...
Still there.
It's still there, and it's brewing and brewing and brewing. And then finally it says that, okay, I'm not getting a time to erupt here, I'm not getting a place to erupt here. Let me travel parallelly, because that chemical is there, right? So it's traveling parallel to the ground. And it will erupt at a place where you don't have your focus on. And that place could be your health.
Yeah.
That place could be your relationship. That could be your career. That could be your money area.
Yeah.
So all of that are those coming from those volcanoes that you didn't deal with in the past.
Yeah.
So I think it is very important to go to the root cause of where it came from, because when you close that first outlet, everything else just has a dominoes effect, and you start exponential seeing, exponential results come, exponential growth comes. Like I've seen in my entire programs, people, those who could not have achieved what they wanted to achieve in 10, 15 years could just do it in 90 days. Because you went back, you closed that lid, you dealt with that inner child, you dealt with that trauma properly, appropriately, you developed a right coping mechanism. Now your brain is going to generalize the entire thing and say, hey, I found that virus, I fixed it, now I'm going to use the antivirus for everything. Right? And that everything fixed in 90 days, your life has to change, because innately I truly believe, Varun, that all of us are geniuses. And the moment you dust these cobwebs, you remove all these things, it's the one which shines. I don't think we need to do anything to be successful. You're already born successful, I feel. I think it's the baggage that we carry that stops us from learning and growing.
Yeah.
Because it puts you in that mindset of, oh, I'm not ready yet. Like I was working with a student yesterday in one of my workshops, and she's like, I have done this great work and, people are getting great result, but I'm still, I don't know, I am procrastinating. I just don't get time only to do it. And my answer to that was, you are looking to start at 100. But you're never going to start at 100. All the people, those who become successful, start at 0 or sometimes minus. Right? And she's like, yeah, but I don't know, why do I keep waiting for that 100? You keep waiting for that 100 because somewhere deep down there's a trauma that you've still not dealt with. Because as a child, Varun, have you ever seen a child lying down on the bed feeling anxious?
No.
2 months baby, 3 months baby, no. Have you ever seen a 2-3 months baby fearing, "Arey, log kya sochenge if I cry and ask for milk?" No, right? We all have screamed, shouted, we all have asked for whatever we wanted when we were younger. That is you. Rest everything is, I think, and that is just, I think that when you go back and you fix that, things start dramatically shifting in your life.
There are two aspects to fixing that, especially when it comes to relationships, right? For a lot of us, I think a lot of the trauma or the baggage we carry, I love the word cobwebs that you said, like the cobwebs we've not dusted off, all comes from different relationships and things that have happened with other people in our life as we're growing up. I believe, and I think people might disagree, is that it's sometimes easier to deal with the issues inside you than it is to deal with other people. Right?
Absolutely.
You don't want to go to your parent or your spouse or your partner or someone who was your friend since childhood and say, this is what you did to me and this is why I've been going through this my entire life.
Absolutely.
Feels like a statement, I can't do that to that person, it might just break the relationship. We have all those questions there. But it's a fundamental part of what we have to do. So one is, how do we correct ourselves is one aspect, but how do we correct while we know that the way to correct it is to actually address it to other people.
I always talk about this, Varun, that most people say that I don't have the right environment at home. Okay. I think expecting people to understand us itself is a wrong statement or wrong expectation. Because, as you said rightly, the first thing is you have to understand yourself first. How many of us understand ourselves fully?
That's true.
Right? And then expecting others to understand us is beyond, because they also are struggling in their life. Understanding you is nobody else's responsibility. It is your sole responsibility after you've become 18.
Yeah.
Right? Before that, maybe you're dependent on other people. So your job is to work on yourself. And there are valid, evidences we have from people's researches that they have done. Like there's one typical research that I talk about is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who's the originator of transcendental meditation.
Yeah.
And his entire research was on this, that he took 7,000 yogis and he trained them into great levels of meditations. And in various cities of US where there was a higher crime rate and things like that, he just placed these 7,000 people in various cities and they did an experiment. Yogis did not go and tell anything to anybody. They were just doing their job the way they do. That could be kindness, that could be smiling with somebody, a stranger, doing their things, working on their vibrations, elevating their vibrations. What they observed after a while is in those cities, the crime rate was reduced 20 to 25% on its own. So if you take that example, the moment you start working on yourself and you continue to work on yourself, it's not going to happen overnight. So you continue to work on yourself and you start producing different results in your life. There will be people in your life who will watch it and say, hey, you know what? I want to become like Varun. I want to become like Meghna. What did she do? What did he do to change that for themselves? And we can become the torchbearers in our families. I don't think we can. I don't know how it is. I have tried explaining to people multiple times initially that this is really great, this works. Nobody would listen to me and say, तुम्हारे लिए काम कर रहा है, हमारे लिए नहीं कर रहा है.
Don't push it on me.
Yeah, right? And I have heard people saying this, maybe you need it, I don't need it. Right? So because when it comes to mental health, people think that, I don't need it, I don't have a problem. Because that's what we have grown up with. The education system, the cultural biases, anything that comes with mental health, we feel it's a taboo. Still, I feel, right? So, I think that I don't think that working with anybody or telling them to works. The only thing that can be done is if you have a great relationship, if you're doing something, maybe you can involve them in what you're doing. And accepting that they may take their own journey. Not pushing on them and expecting them to understand you is beyond, because see, you have a vision of growing and becoming this person. They don't. So how do you expect them to even understand that vision? Right?
Yeah.
And plus they have so many fears. Just like we had when we were younger. Our community is that, and they have the fears. And the biggest fear I feel is the families have is if she changes or if he changes and if they grow, what if we lose them? And the second biggest fear they have is, if they are changing, I will have to change too.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we are human beings, we hate change. The only human being who likes change is the baby in the wet diaper.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. And change is such a tricky thing, right? Because to go... if you're not changing, no matter how bad your situation is, you feel like you're comfortable. At least, that whole frying pan and fire scenario, right? We're always saying, okay, 1 second, you're here, it's bad, but what if it gets worse? So let me just stay here. But you have to almost cross beyond that fear of, okay, what change might bring. And then at some point you start to learn and then you start to grow, right? But I think for most of us, because our reflex is, no, let me just be here, let me just stick to that fear. We don't even try to figure out, which is, the classical sweep things under the carpet. Don't deal with it. You're fine. Or the simple fact is, you don't have to turn and respond to someone and tell them how you're feeling or what their actions have made you kind of feel like. I feel even like you said, transcendental meditation. I feel even meditation to itself is something people fear, because how can I sit down and do nothing? Right? It is the scariest thing for most people to sit by themselves and do nothing.
Yeah.
Because that has to be one of the toughest things, especially in today's world where you have so many ting 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 tings happening all around us, that how do you sit and really have that conversation with yourself? I'd love for you to talk about the power of things like transcendental meditation and what that really does for you to unlock what's in your head.
So, honestly, to be really, really brutally honest with you, Arun, and people those who are watching us here, I was one of them who could never meditate. And the reason I could never meditate is because I had so many thoughts from the past, the negative experiences that I had had, that it was very difficult for me to sit by myself, not even meditating, but just being alone with myself.
Yeah.
I could never be. I had to engage myself into something, be with someone or do something, but I could just never sit still. So I can totally relate to this whole thing, that why you can't do it. The simple thing is, you can't just do meditation like that. Otherwise, har koi kar leta, right? Meditation is not that way. Meditation is something that comes much later. Before that happens is a reflection, right? So what is the simplest technique that you can use is you have to train your brain every single day. When you are going to sleep in the night, you just take 5 minutes and you don't have to do anything. Just starting of the day when you woke up till the time that you came on the bed. Just focus on all the hours. Like suppose you woke up at 6 o'clock, 6 to 7 what you did, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, you go till whatever time you're sleeping. Every hour, what was the highlight of the hour? Okay, that's called as reflection. When you train your brain to reflect, what happens in the reflection is, when you focus on that hour, you realize that what are some things that you did great? What are some things that you could have done better? What are some things you should not have done? So it's becoming aware of what are your thoughts. And this is a good practice to do for very long time before even getting into meditation. Because I personally don't recommend meditation to people, those who are anxious or depressed. Because when you meditate, what happens is it opens the gate of the subconscious mind. And if you go into meditation with anxiety, it might take the anxiety deeper, and then everything else will, like, it's like, you meditation is like some people use it as a drug, like I'm sitting and I'm feeling good for this 30 minutes and you felt better. But now you've taken all the shit inside your subconscious, and suddenly after the 30 minutes get over, it's like, drug effect is over. Now it's all like boom, back. So rather do reflection. It'll help you big time to deal with your emotions, which are uncomfortable emotions that you have gone through the day. And you will realize over the period of time, like if you do the activity of reflection for say 90 days, you will realize that there's such a dramatic difference in your way of thinking. Because as I said earlier, we are all geniuses. And nobody wants to be depressed, nobody wants to be anxious, nobody wants to be fearful, or nobody wants to fall sick. It's what is happening in your subconscious mind. So the reflection gives you an ability to pivot in your thought process. So don't be alone till you can't. Don't meditate till you can't. And this beautiful thing about meditation is, what is meditation? It's not just sitting in silence. Meditation could be when an artist is painting. Meditation could be when a sportsman is playing. Meditation could be an author is writing. Those are all forms of meditation. Meditation could be someone who's singing. Meditation could be someone who's dancing. And you don't have to be a maestro to do that. I think if you have a lot of things going on in your space, I ask people to not get into meditation sitting. Rather do the meditation in walk on the beach, or go to the forest, or just kind of like, be one with the nature, because you're part of nature. Right? Second thing you can do is you can simply dance or sing, whatever you like. Swimming could be a great meditation, right? So I think we should start with the active forms of meditation if you can't do sit-down meditations. Once you master the active forms of meditation, eventually you can start, and don't start 30 minutes, start 2 minutes. That's okay. And in those 2 minutes also know that you're going to get flood of thoughts. Just remember to not engage with those thoughts. Just that's enough. Like, how do you disassociate from, how do you observe that thought? Okay, I came the thought of, I'm not good enough. Okay, the thought has come and is like, it's like a train passing the station, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to stop at all stations. So that's the training, and eventually you can become a good meditator, but it's a practice.
I'm glad you said reflection before meditation, right? Because I think meditation comes with a lot of pressure. It comes with the feeling of, I have to, like, I remember the first time I couldn't do, I think a minute is what I did. And then the second time I did maybe a couple of minutes. It's taken me years to come to like my present, I would say, record of for 15 minutes, right? That's the max I can go. I can't go more than that. But even then, I prefer the ones which have prompts. Someone's telling me what to do, what to do with my breath, what else to do. Reflection, something I unfortunately came to much later, because I realized that there was a power to journaling, and I took the pressure off saying I don't have to write every day. I will write the day I want to write. But the one thing I haven't gotten myself to do, which I know a lot of people use as a very powerful tool, is to understand how to visualize and how to manifest. Two things that I've heard so many versions. I mean, I'm married to someone who believes in manifestation, right? But I haven't been able to get my mind around it. I'm like, no, it doesn't work for me yet. I don't understand it yet. For still a non-believer like me, does it actually work? Manifestation, visualization?
Well, if you think of, let's do an activity right now, okay?
Yeah.
So I want you to think of an apple. So what did you just see as an apple?
I didn't see a Washington apple. I saw the regular Desi apple for some reason.
But you saw an apple, right?
I saw an apple, yeah.
Did you see a spelling of apple, or did you see apple?
I saw an apple.
Apple, right? So why did you see apple, you feel?
Because my mind has an imagery of it already imprinted.
It's not imagery of it already printed. Yes, it is in case of apple, but your brain does not read words. It reads images of the words. So even if you say, I saw APPLE, you saw an image of an apple.
Yeah.
Word, right? So it's not, our words are the secondary part of your brain learning. The first part of your brain learning is images. And that's why we do a lot of activities with children in terms of pictorial activities, right? Because that's where they're picking up all the information. So our fundamental foundational learning skill of brain is visual. And that's where, if you can learn your studies visually, why can't you learn what you want in future visually? So that answers your question, how does visualization work?
Yeah.
Because your brain, a part of your brain, I would say, does not differentiate. And this is the oldest part of your brain, which has got something called as reticular activation system. And this is a bundle of nerves. So reticular activation system basically is your navigation system, like Google Maps, right? Yeah. So the navigation system, in the flood of information, all the information that comes to us, our subconscious processes more than 40,000 bits of data every single moment. Our conscious only processes 40 bits of data. So that's the difference. Now your subconscious is overloaded with that information by the end of the day, or even half an hour when you go on social media, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is the reticular activation system basically filters that information. Because your brain may be a supercomputer, but it'll still crash if it has to process all the information. So what it does is it filters out the information that is relevant to you. So say you just bought a car, or you bought an outfit, a particular accessory, or something which is... Now, when you decide to buy it, or you do research on it, or you actually buy it, do you see it more around you?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So does that mean that everybody bought with you? No. It was already there, but now your reticular activation system has understood that this is relevant for Varun. He's bought it, he's invested his time, money, energy into this product or whatever it is. So I want to see this more. I want to show him more because this seems like something important information. So reticular activation system based on what you invest your time, energy, money in, or emotions in. And there's a reason your reticular activation system works on what beliefs you already carry. And that's where I was talking about the changing of the beliefs that coming from the past is fundamental, repairing your past.
Yeah.
The second thing about the visualization of this reticular activation system, if you continue to give it that information, it will start feeling that there's a reason you're engaging with this information. It's like you're going on research about a particular car. So it's sending you all the messages about the car, right? So visualization works exactly like that. So this part of your brain does not understand the difference between what is real and what is imaginary. So when you do the visualization for the future that you want, now it could be a particular body shape, it could be a vacation, it could be a particular business, a particular turnover, whatever it is means for you, car, whatever, right? People do visualization for various things. Now, when you do that, when you do it again and again and again, your reticular activation system feels that this is important information. And let me show Varun more opportunities that it can become his reality. Because in the reticular activation system, this is a reality. And that's how the visualization works. Now, let's keep visualization and manifestation separate.
Yeah.
Because manifestation is a whole different topic.
Yeah.
Most people think you're manifesting when you're visualizing. That's furthest from the truth.
Okay.
You're manifesting 24 hours. The life that you're living right now is a manifestation of your thoughts.
Okay.
It's not that half an hour. You may not be focusing actively on visualizations, but there is a different process, Varun, in your brain to be this successful that it is visualizing in a certain different way. That's where most of the places you will see when the corporates are building or when you're building your startup, you're engaging a lot in creative visualization. What are you doing in creative visualization? You're manifesting. Because that's where I think you have to live, breathe, smell the future that you want to live. And that people are not able to do. Why do people fall into the same realities again and again? It's because you're not changing your thoughts. It is because what you thought today, you must have thought yesterday, day before, a week back, a month back, a year back, or maybe years. The decisions that you're making today is creating your destiny. But what if we on an average, a human being takes about 35,000 decisions every single day. And I haven't seen a person, however much ever the person is successful, has given me more than 3 to 5 conscious decisions that they have taken on a particular day.
Yeah.
So then who's taking the 34,995 decisions for you? It is your reptilian part of your brain, which wants to keep you safe and comfortable. So when you're manifesting the same old stuff in your life, remember that there's a lot of garbage there that needs to be cleaned.
While you were talking, I was also thinking is that the fundamental mistake a lot of people might be making is that they believe manifestation is saying, I will have a dream, and the dream will come true, and I don't have to do anything about it. But maybe we'd have to understand that dreams and manifesting has one fundamental difference, that is the actual effort you have to put in, right? I'd love you to dig into that part.
So see, what does manifestation say? You have to first conceive. That's where the creative visualization comes. Whether you're doing it on the paper or in your mind, doesn't matter. I am a personal fan of doing it on the paper.
Yeah,
I also don't do it in my head because I feel that there's so much there, it might get lost.
Never works,
I
yeah.
have lots of books, journals, and I have separate journals for everything, and I keep doing a lot of work on my journal. So conceive. Then you believe. So how does the belief come? Belief just doesn't come because, today I want to become a 100 crore person, and in your bank if there's 1 lakh. You can't just become a 100 crore person from 1 lakh, right?
Yeah.
So to believe that, what are the resources you require at that point of time? Okay, you may not be a 100 crore person right now, but from 1 lakh to 100 crore is a journey. So can you learn to become that person? Absolutely yes.
Yeah.
How do you become that person? So your personality, right? What does your personality constitute? The way you think, the way you feel, and the way you act. So the act part is very much required there, right? So the belief has pretty much everything. The conviction doesn't come from thinking. The conviction comes from taking action, right? So that's huge part of, I think, belief, which people miss out. A lot of times I feel that people just start doing affirmations or sit down in meditations. Yes, it will work. It probably will make you a person who probably will start taking different actions. But there's a power to being conscious about your actions. Right? That's very, very important. It's like, to give an example, let's take a garden. You have lots of seeds. Okay, now you have seeds in your hand. And you're having seeds, and there is a plot there, and you're thinking, okay, my seeds are going to turn into a beautiful garden. My seeds are going to turn into a beautiful garden. It's never going to turn into a beautiful garden unless you
Haven't
plant
planted
them.
it, yeah.
You actually nurture them. You put some water. You kind of remove the weeds from it because you want to be very watchful, tend the garden properly. That's where over a period of time that garden will become
Yeah.
a garden. Not overnight as well. Like I see a lot of reels and videos, etc., floating across social media saying I manifested this much money overnight. Maybe it was already there in your parents' bank. Honestly,
True,
right?
true.
So it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Because, and also see, I personally feel that you may get something that you want. A lot of people I know after reading Secret have come up and said that they got what they wanted, but they could not sustain it. You can't, because your vibrations in that moment probably were matching that goal.
Yeah.
But because you have not done the deep work on yourself, your vibrations dropped. And the moment your vibrations dropped, it's like hamare time pe, you remember the television used to come with that antenna on the terrace, right?
Yeah. And someone's going on top and we're moving it
and
around.
we're shouting and saying, because phone to hota nahi tha ki
Aaya kya?
right? And then you're hitting the TV, you're hitting the antenna. So it's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
what are you actually catching is you're aligning the vibration. The television is just projecting the picture of the vibration that it is, frequency that it is catching.
Yeah.
So whatever you're achieving in your life is just the picture of the frequency you're catching in the universe. And that will not last if you don't work on it consistently.
I want to ask you about two words you've used. Vibration and frequency. Okay, let's open this up. When I say this is the vibration I'm feeling, some people use the word energy, which I'm feeling from other people. Some people say vibration. I've heard many of these terms, right? But for someone, again, I'm going very like, okay, I'm a non-believer. What is this vibration? I don't know what it is. How can there be vibrations in there? What would you say to explain what this vibration actually is, and how do I spot it?
Okay. Do you believe in electricity?
Yes.
So if there is no light, will you still believe in electricity if the bulbs are not on?
Maybe not. No.
Okay.
I
Okay.
will.
It's okay. It's okay. You may not. Maybe you're just being a hard customer right now for me. So it's okay if you don't believe.
That's what people say, right?
That's right. So what I would suggest is pick up a socket, put your finger in it, and switch on the bulb. Switch on the switch.
Then I definitely will believe it.
You'll
yeah.
believe in it, right?
Yeah.
Why would you believe in something that is? Can you see electricity? You can't, right? Can you see air? You can't. You can only see air because the dust particles.
Yeah.
But close your mouth, close your nose,
You
sit
can
for
feel
some
it.
time. You're going to feel lack of it, and
Yeah.
then you're suddenly going to believe, oh, there is
Yeah.
Bhagwan hai.
Yeah. Yeah.
The vibrations are like that. Everything on this planet, whether it is not planet, entire universe, whether it is living or non-living, has a vibration. It's emitting a certain electromagnetic frequency, and you can measure it with the resonance instruments. We have done this experiment as a child. You remember in school,
Yeah.
physics mein, the resonance.
Yeah.
Same thing. You can actually practically check the resonance for everything. Everything, like this mic, you, me, camera, everything has a resonance. And that resonance, your frequency is a measurement of vibration. And there are so many different vibrations that we as human beings carry. We are capable of carrying, rather, I would say, because we are fortunate that we can carry so many vibrations in us. So if you don't believe in it, there are so many ways that you can believe in it. One of them is put the finger in the socket.
Yeah. Which is also, and the reason I asked you that is because it's sometimes easier to say, but for someone to believe, they need to experience it.
Yeah, so vibration is nothing else but it's electricity, right? So all of us once in our life at least have got the static, right? So have you studied in school where it says that you have to be a conductor of electricity to experience electricity?
Yeah.
So how can you experience static if you don't have electricity yourself?
So then, would you say that for a person to, let's say I want to work towards a certain kind of life, right? And I have to deal with all the things that are bad vibrations from my past, things which are holding me back, almost blocking me. So even when I might be visualizing, I'm suddenly seeing some gray areas which are blocking my eyes because it's stopping me from seeing what I could be. So I got to first get all of that stuff out. and then I'm visualizing where I can go, and then I'm manifesting what that could be. But throughout that, it's almost like sometimes, it might just be your gut, and your gut is actually the vibration you're listening to. It's saying, this is what I should do, and it's giving me clarity towards a decision. Would you say that's a good way to explain it?
Well, you know what I would say, that don't believe too much on your gut feeling if you have a lot of stuff happened in your past. Because now the voice is all muddled. You don't know that. So the first thing that you need to do is pause and actually start writing down what comes to you. Clarity has the biggest power.
Yeah.
Right? Why people are anxious, why people are stressed, why people are confused or have doubts is because they don't have clarity.
Yeah.
The moment you get the clarity, nothing of this will come to you. It's a lack of clarity that builds stress in you. So don't listen to it right now. Just put everything down on the paper,
Yeah.
and then see what makes sense out of it. Most of the times, if you have a lot of things happen in your past coming from a lot of traumatic experiences, a lot of your first page would be probably all negatives. Once you've removed all that, then the real stuff starts coming out, and you start putting it out there as well. And when that happens, then there are some nuggets will come out. And then actually consciously make a SWOT analysis. Once you do the SWOT analysis, that's where you'll be able to match with the alignment of the voice that you're actually listening to. And there are two things you need to understand. If your gut feeling says that you don't do something, and that feeling comes with fear, it's not your gut feeling, it's not your intuition. And that fear, that gut feeling will always make you not take action.
Yeah.
But if your gut feeling says that don't do it, but do it this way. So the feeling that you need to listen to is the one that makes you take action. But the feeling that comes to you that tells you don't take action is a fear, not feeling. That's a clear distinction between the voice that you have within yourself. So once you've done the SWOT analysis, then you answer the 3 questions to get to where you want to be from where you are. The first is, what do I need to stop doing at this point of time? Because it's not doing much, it's eliminating more that helps you to reach your goal faster.
Yeah.
The second question is, what do I need to start doing new?
Yeah.
Because something you're not doing, that's why you're not getting there. So what is it that you need to start doing? That could be learning from somebody who's already achieved that goal. Or maybe finding the resources to delegate some work so that you can create an extra time to finish writing that book or that report. And the third thing that you must understand is, what do I need to continue doing? Because see, we are all not broken. There's a part of us that has done some things really right, and that's why we are alive and we are here. So what are those beautiful things that you already have within you that you want to continue doing? So these are the 3 questions that you must answer after your SWOT. To get to this strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, into this matrix, what do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? And what do I need to continue doing?
Yeah.
I'm 100% sure the clarity will emerge so well. And you will see that the clarity is power. It will not stop you. So don't believe a lot on your thoughts, honestly, because you get 60,000, 70,000 thoughts every day, right? So your thoughts are not true, but your feelings are facts. So focus on what you're feeling, and that will guide, that could be a North Star. And we were just having this conversation about your wife choosing a feeling, and I think that's the best way, because I always choose my feelings for my year. So say 2024, I'm choosing my feelings out of the top 3 feelings that I want to feel for 2024. And my entire planning and vision goes around feeling those feelings. So anything that does not align with that feeling, I don't do it. It's the easiest way, because that's your North Star.
It's, I think I read about this as well, that is, it's feeling-based goals versus quantifiable goals, and that way you look at a broader spectrum of what you could do. It doesn't feel restrictive in that sense. And also, while you're talking, it reminded me of so I've been on a bit of a journey for the last 5 years, right? I would say from 2018 2018, 2019, or maybe 2020 onwards till now, I think a lot of us went through, that shock we needed to get. 2020 was the year for a lot of us. Put that finger into the socket and suddenly got that shock and like, okay, 1 second, let's think about life. But what that led me down was to really take away all the junk. When you said eliminate things, that's so important because there's so many things we overload ourselves with, which are restricting us, saying, no, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, or the fact that, okay, now you're already doing this, is comfortable, stick to that. And I'd put myself in the spot where I had agreed to all those things that were restricting me. And it's been a slow process of peeling off restriction after restriction, I would say, for the last almost 3-4 years. And I still feel I've only hit like stage 1 or stage 2 of the stuff to take off. There is always that voice saying, no, you shouldn't do this. It won't work. It hasn't worked in the past. And I just have to, and I'm glad you said write it on paper, because the more we write things down on paper, it's like a conversation with yourself, but it's not random. It's not, it's actually on paper. And when it's on paper, there is something to and this is not like an iPad on paper scenario.
I know. A lot of people ask me this question. Can I do it digitally? Or don't.
Pencil or pen on an actual piece of paper, there is, and I was trying to find some research on it. I think there is some which says that the tactileness of just that feeling of you touching that and you feeling that texture, there is something that does to your mind which makes you say, this is you putting it on paper, which means that this is you having a conversation with yourself. And then you kind of cross things off. Yeah. And just the practice of crossing something off just has this impact on your mind. You're saying, like, it's done, it's gone. Versus you thinking in your head, and then thinking can go on forever. Yeah. And you never know what is gut, what is chatter, what is negative thoughts, what is positive thoughts. And maybe putting on paper also helps you deal with something which most of us run away from, is we run away from pain. We don't want to deal with pain, but we need pain throughout our lives, because otherwise you're not feeling pain, they're not feeling you're dead, right? Yeah. But how does someone start a journey of dealing with pain? Because it's such a tough one. Yeah. We've told her, like don't touch anything hot, don't deal with pain, but you have to cross that bridge to progress.
Yeah. Interestingly, you said about pain. I feel the abbreviation of pain is pay attention to the information in now. Right? P is for pay, A is for attention, I is for information, and N stands for now.
Yeah.
So whichever pain is coming to you, whether it's a physical or an emotional pain, has an information embedded in it. Because every pain has a frequency, and every frequency has an information. Yeah. Right? Just like Wi-Fi, or pehle wo telegram hote the, or Morse code, everything has information, decoding, right? So every pain that comes to you has an information. So rather than feeling that I want to avoid the pain, how about asking it a question, what are you here to tell me? Because your triggers, your pain is your teacher. So you got to ask the right questions. What do you want from me? What are you here to teach me? What are you here to show me? Because I have seen, Varun, honestly, I've seen 30, 40 years of pain in one of my workshops that I do regularly. 30, 40 years of pain just vaporizes in 10 minutes of a process. And it never comes back. Because that pain was carrying a certain information, either of future or of past. And interestingly, every emotion, if you look at, E stands for energy in motion. So every emotion has a frequency, right? And because we are owning almost 120 chemicals in our body every single day. Yeah. Okay, and this is normal, not stressed. A normal human being generates 120 chemicals. So imagine all the 120 chemicals are like a factory of, chemical factory having that information. And based on, suppose you keep ignoring certain things in your life, the more and more pain will come in your life, whether it's an emotional or a physical pain, just to take you back to that place, for you to address it.
Yeah.
And tell me something here, Varun. Let's agree to this, or let me know if you disagree. But do you think, you as a parent, will you ever give something to your child that your child will not be able to handle?
Not beyond a certain limit, right?
Correct? Yeah. You'll only go, like if your child can handle probably this cup, You'll probably make it a little bigger so that she can increase her
Like
strength.
throwing them into a swimming pool, right? You know that, okay, 1 second, it's safe enough. They won't won't have an
Exactly.
adverse effect.
So you will increase the load on your child based on, assessing their capacity, right? So let's think of the universe as one big organization, and you and I as one single cell in that organization.
Yeah.
Okay? Organism, let's take, not organization. Otherwise, some people say, oh, but my organization gives me a lot of work, which I can't handle. So let's go back to organism.
Correct.
So let's take this whole universe as a human body, and you or me are probably one single cell. By the way, anything that happens in your body, full body, whatever the systems are operating, every single cell of your body operates the same system.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's a constant messaging going on from your body to your that one cell, and from cell to your body, just like a parent and child relationship, right?
Yeah.
So parent is only going to give a child as much workload that the child can handle, because a parent loves the child.
Yeah.
This is a context. Your body loves you.
Yeah.
Right? So it is going to give you only that much pain that you can handle.
Yeah.
But if you keep rebelling and saying, "Mujhe nahi chahiye ye," and I'm not going to deal with it, then it is going to increase the intensity of the pain. Just to point it out to you, you better deal with it, otherwise I'm not going to stop. So whether it's an emotional or a physical pain, it has an information for you to decode. And once you decode that information, it would be the greatest opportunity of your life. So if you have pain, celebrate. Because you have been given a greatest opportunity in your life to change your life.
It's giving you a signal to say that you need to kind of let it out. You need
Absolutely.
to let go.
Let it out, or maybe there is an information there. Maybe it is saying something like, you need to take action on something. Like, I'll typically give you a scenario. Like, generally a lower back pain for a lot of people that comes. If you, like in my last 26 years, I have understood that most people, those who get lower back pain, especially the belt area, the lumbar and coccygeal area, that pain has come to those people because of a traumatic event based on a financial problem or a financial challenge, or every time they felt that they are walking on the tightrope. Now that could be not just financial, that could be emotional tightrope. Like suppose some people are dealing with probably a narcissistic family member, and that itself is like you're walking on the eggshell constantly. So it's a tightrope situation. And in that situations, the pain has created a message for them that they have to start working on the root of that pain. If it is, a lot of people use physical pain as a reminder, by the way, for not going back to that past event.
Yeah.
It is, I can't even begin to tell you, it's so amazing to see them that when you take them back to that event, they're not even aware of, obviously, because nobody teaches you this.
Yeah.
And when they release themselves from that trauma, pain is gone. And they're like, I've never felt this free ever in my life.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your emotional pain. So every time the pain comes, don't run away. Dance and celebrate as it's an opportunity for you to grow in your life. That's a perspective shift that you have to bring in yourself. It's not an obstacle, it's an opportunity.
I feel that I think what I've learned also from you is that when you're looking at pain, while it's signaling to you that this is something that you need to deal with because it's telling you something, you also need to ask yourself, what do I need to do to overcome it? Yeah. Like I love studying athletes and just how their mindset works, right? There's this entire, and sometimes you have to believe that something can happen. And one of my favorite stories was, there was if I remember right, it's a 4-minute mile.
Yeah,
Right?
Roger Bannister.
It's like everybody said it's impossible. You can't run a 4-minute mile. And they kept saying it for years and years and years. And the first person did the 4-minute mile. The second person happened quickly. And after that, everybody started doing it, right? It's that you had to have one person push beyond that pain. And suddenly it became less pain for everybody else saying, oh, someone's done it, so I should be able to do it. And like one of my favorite authors and podcasters is someone called Rich Roll, right? Rich Roll went through a lot of trauma growing up and, became an alcoholic and had to go through, rehab for that. Then he replaced alcohol with food. So he didn't get over the trauma. He just replaced it, one mechanism with the other. And then eventually at the age of 40, almost felt like getting a heart attack when he's walking up a flight of stairs. And a couple of years later, he runs 5 ultra marathons back to back, right? It's sometimes you have to choose pain beyond what you're going through, because he said he had to prove to himself that he could do this. And every time he pushed himself towards that boundary and pushed that boundary a little bit more, you realize that there's so much more you can do. And it's something like, for me, that's been the learnings, that you don't have to push against what your barrier is, but if you are in general pushing barriers, it becomes easier for you to move beyond them.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Do you also kind of, when you look at how someone figures themselves out, and you've spoken about writing something down a bunch of times, we've also spoken about dealing with so much that is there. If I have to look at the human mind today, and I want to circle back to how you even started getting into this, and we look at, we talk about Ayurvedic medicine today. We've all understood the value of that. I think the world has figured the value of Ayurveda and where that comes in, and how that can connect to how we look at our mind. Do you feel everything's getting connected now? Finally, we're not putting at head and mind and body separately, that we're connecting together, and some form nature and natural pieces are actually helping bind that?
I think it's still very on the surface, especially in India, I feel, first of all, affordability.
Yeah.
Second, the mindset of feeling that this is luxury, this is not necessity. We're dealing with a lot of stuff on the ground levels of survival, food, shelter, clothes, where this becomes, but I think at the global level, yes, it's much better. Also, I feel celebrities coming and saying has made a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Like, then, you realize, if this can happen to them,
Yeah.
after having so many things, then I need to, so I think there is a lot of awakening happening because the growth that I see, that people reaching out to us is exponential. And these are some amazing people, you just feel that, wow. I mean, somebody the other day I was talking to, and, she was saying that you must be having more women coming to you for this. And I said, no, I have, that was a scenario before, but what I have today is 70% men. And that's such a heartwarming, experience for me as a woman, because I feel that these are the people, those who are going to make that world better place. Because I think it's not just one person, so one gender's duty. I think whoever awakens at whatever time and whatever ways that you can get access to something, invest and do it. Because it's the biggest investment that you will experience. But we have a long way to go, honestly, I feel.
Yeah.
I think with podcasts like this, or, other people working, things like that, I think slowly it will...
You're learning.
It will work slowly. We still, I think, are 10, 15 years behind.
No, I asked you that also because I feel that at least, we're not saying we don't want to talk about it, it's not a thing. We all agree that there is something there. And I feel we are all starting our journey towards, okay, what is the next step I need to take? How do I start progressing towards it? If you had a piece of advice for someone who was starting that off today, in terms of their journey, what is step one?
Okay, I'm going to use quotations from Buddha. Okay. So Buddha has already told us 2,500 years back, to master something, what do you need to do? The first one is Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, right? Surrender to the enlightened one. Surrender to a guru, a teacher. That's not necessarily a spiritual guru, right? The context here is what do you want, where you are and where you want to go. Has somebody already gotten there? So I don't think in the world, the goals that we have, everybody has, all the goals have been achieved, right? Beyond, like, if you say I want to go to Mars, that's a different story. But otherwise, the regular people have the goals those who somebody has achieved, right? So rather than reinventing the wheel, rather than trying to figure it out yourself, find that person. And we are living in an information world today where people are really ready to give information, okay? The one expectation that people have is it should come for free. So don't do that.
Yeah.
Nothing comes for free. And if you're getting something free, that means you're the product. So invest your time, invest your money. That's the second line that Buddha says. First is Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Then there is Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam is not dharma. If you look at dharma, it's the dharma of nature. Okay, so what's the rule of cosmos? You first sow the seed and then you reap the fruits. right? So when you surrender to that teacher, whoever it is, what are the seeds that person is asking you to sow? Whether you need to give your time, whether you need to give your efforts, whether you need to give your money, what do you need to give? Give that first and then expect the return of value. So don't expect anything coming to you for free. I think that's the biggest thing that people have to understand, that mental health and people those who are giving the services, they have done a lot of hard work, and it just can't be given to you free, because whatever we get for free we don't value, right?
Yeah.
So invest whatever they are asking you to invest. And the third is Sangham Sharanam Gacchami, because you are going to be the byproduct of the 5 people that you are with. So Sangham is a community. So what community you want to belong to from here on? And who do you need to become, or what do you need to be part of that community? I think these are the 3 simple steps that a man walked on this planet, mastered himself, enlightened, and then spread the entire religion and a philosophy has given us. And I think if we understand the true meaning of it, not from the religious point of view, but from a philosophical point of view, to master anything in your life, you've done it. Like when you were a baby, you learned to walk, and your teacher was probably your mother, father, your grandparents. What you gave at that time is your efforts to not stopping, even if you fell down. You dusted and you walked. And then the third thing happened is that community, everybody was walking, so you learned to walk. So things that as simple as walking, talking, eating, we have not learned without a teacher. Why do you want to figure out life without a teacher? I just don't get this. I mean, the shortest possible way, your education doesn't stop at your college. Your education should begin after your college.
What you just said about being open to learning for life, I feel the core part there is also you might say, oh, I'm going to start this journey, I need to do this. But till the day you say, I want to do it, and I want to change, and I want to learn myself, and I want to pull apart all the pain that I have and move ahead, you're never really going to get the result. You'll find a reason not to continue it. And I think a lot of what I've learned on this conversation is that you have to move beyond that barrier you have. You have to move beyond the cobwebs, like you said, and kind of find a way towards being successful, because, and I love that part, what you said. All of us are already geniuses. We're already successful. We just have to remove all the stuff that's blocking that out from us. There are a set of questions I ask all my guests at the end. And I do this because it's a good way to wind up every conversation. What's your best and worst habit?
My best habit is I don't sleep with any grievances. I make sure that I laugh a lot before I sleep, because I know whatever goes for last in your mind will come first. So life has become much better after I've trained myself to laugh more. My worst habit is, I would say I've gotten over a lot of them, but I would say still my worst habit is a lot of times when there are people around me, I suddenly get this deepest urge to be alone.
Don't we all?
Yeah. And I get lost then in that case. Like if I find the conversations are not appealing to me, I may be physically present there, but I am mentally
Switched off
somewhere
mentally.
else, right? So I'm working on that habit,
Yeah.
not really mastered it yet.
So I use that like a safety mechanism. For me, it's amazing. I'm like, I can switch off anywhere in the world and I can do. But I agree. It's something to work on for sure. What's your biggest indulgence?
I think my adaptability quotient is very high.
Yeah. Do you have like a work uniform? Like,
Yeah.
If I dress like this, then I'm like set for work.
Yeah, I hate it, but I do it. But you will often see me in blazers.
Yeah. Do you have anything which you've read, anything which you consumed lately that you would recommend people should read, people should watch?
Yeah, I love listening to different podcasts. I love particularly, if in this subject you would say Andrew Huberman's podcast. I love it's a long podcast, but every time it comes out, I don't
best.
sleep without watching it. So I would definitely recommend if someone wants to listen to that. Books, I read a lot, but anything to recommend right now. It depends on, there's this beautiful book called Shame That Binds You. Okay. And it talks about, because I'm talking about this topic, so I'm just going to kind of talk about that, what relevance to that is. I think that helps you to realize that how the shame has shaped our life and how we have put ourselves in the box and how we are not achieving what we are capable of. It's a big book, so and very deep book. So maybe, and there's another book I would like to talk about is this is my bedside book. Okay, it's a version of Bhagavad Gita, which is written by Paramahansa Yogananda, which is talks about God talks to Arjun. It's a 2-volume book, and I have read it long back. But what I do now is every day I just pick up any volume and I just turn a page and see what's my message for today. So it's like angel cards messages coming from Bhagavad Gita for me. So there's a shlok that comes up and there's a narration, there's an explanation. So I really love and I really feel that that book speaks to me. So if anybody wants to kind of try your hands, you can probably look at.
It's good to have a book like that to kind of pick up and just
yes.
It's a great habit to actually have. Yeah. I asked you earlier what piece of advice you would have for people, but what is the best piece of advice you ever gotten?
The best piece of advice that I ever got is self-care is most important, because for me it was very important exercise, because I'm born in a middle-class family, and when you see financial restrictions in family in terms of you don't have surplus of everything, self-care comes the last, right? So even when I started making money, for me that concept was not there. There was always something else important. So I really had to train myself to take care of myself, whether it is investing in a trainer, investing in good food. And I've been candid here, like it took me a while to kind of invest that money into my self-care. So that was the one best advice that I got from someone, and said that, hey, you know what, you will do everything for everybody else, but when you're going to be old, your body is going to be your best friend. So what are you doing with that? So I think that made a huge difference to me.
Thank you so much for doing this. This has been amazing. I think so much to learn, so much to also absorb. And I think we got some of the shocks that were needed to kind of also like really think about all this stuff. But thank you so much for doing this podcast. And I hope this is almost the start of people's journey to understanding their own mind and the connection to everything that they do in their life.
I loved it. Thank you, Varun, for having me. Thank you so much.